time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and we have Blake, our co-host, returning for What Happened, Cad Bane. And Cad Bane is a character that's come up time and time again. And for spoilers, for anyone who hasn't seen Book of Boba Fett, but meets his timely end. And we're going to be chatting about this character as a full story arc from beginning to end, all the pieces and bits of canon that he's shown up in through the years. We've had a great time doing these What Happened episodes on various characters over the podcast, and this is just the latest one to hit our What Happened sub-series. So, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
It's impossible. Not to mention deadly. I want a rogue-class starfighter with elite weapons, cloaking device, the works. Oh, and triple my usual rate.
Here we are with Cad Bane. What happened? Welcome back to the show, Blake.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Always good to be here. And what an exciting character to talk about. I know this has been one of your favorites for as long as I can remember. I think when I met you, I got a glimpse into the past of Josh, and you were already doing voice impressions. So
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think my voice was a little squeakier back then, but you know. Yeah, it was, Cad Bane is such a good character because he's one of these guys that just, he's one of these characters that just really brings the Western side of Star Wars back out again, you know, and I feel like some aspects of Star Wars kind of stray really far from that old West kind of vibe, which is what A New Hope kind of gave us on Tatooine, and then you kind of with the cantina, you know, the saloon, if you will, and
yeah, it was very much like an old West planet. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, Cad Bane kind of really brings that back, and you know, I know Boba had, you know, you had the Western flair going on with the spurs and all that, but in the prequels, we didn't really have any of that stuff, and it wasn't really a familiar tone, I guess, through those first three episodes. And
No, you're right. And I know a lot of people, when the prequels came out, they disliked how different they were. And I bet that was a big part of it.
Right.
They're missing the spaghetti Western feel.
Yeah, and you know, and Django, I wouldn't really call him like an old Western cowboy style kind of guy, because he's really like rough around the edges, so he's got that going for him, and he does have the kind of dual slinging gun thing going on with the but other than that, though, there really isn't a lot of scum and villainy, I guess, is what I would use to describe, you know, that seedy kind of underworld Western side, right?
It wasn't.
We got a different type of underworld in the prequels.
Absolutely, because we're dealing more with the Separatists. That was more, I guess, their underworld, I think.
Yeah, and the bounty hunters and assassins that we do see and meet in the prequels are at times, you know, they're not the Western cowboy kind of style people. They're different, right? Like Zam Wessel or Aura Singh.
They're more of political assassins.
Yeah, they're not people I would pin for being cowboyish. And Cad Bane is just this very prominent, to a lot of us, has been this prominent character now from Clone Wars that kind of emanates with that prequel era, and he's like 100% just straight out of this Western culture in Star Wars, right? So he's just such a cool character, and what makes him so interesting. Yeah, and what makes him so interesting, he's just got less of a code of ethics, you know? He's the bad guy.
Yeah, that's definitely what he is. Like you got the flat brim. You never see his eyes when he approaches you, right? And then he's the quickest draw in the West.
Yeah.
He's the guy you don't want to mess with, right? He's the anti-hero to the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, exactly. So the Jedi have lots of run-ins with him over the Clone Wars, and he frequently deals with the Separatists. And I guess now that we've got shows within the last 2 years, we've kind of realized, hey, this guy's been around longer than we thought, because quite a few years ago, Clone Wars was canceled. There were some story arcs planned for him, which we'll get into and talk about, which potentially would have ended his storyline in that era. But over the last 2 years, Bad Batch has come out. A lot of people know he shows up in Bad Batch. A lot of people have seen Book of Boba and know that he kind of meets his end in the end show there. And
Spoilers.
yeah, and it's just one of those things. It's like, okay, at this point, we can look at this character as a complete picture, and I'm sure he'll show up again in other stories that Lucasfilm puts out, in comics, books, whatever. But those are going to be stories that kind of fit within the existing time frame that he's still alive. And now we have the chance to kind of look back at this character's history and when he's popped up and stuff like that, and see kind of which characters he's actually had personal dealings with and stories that he's been involved with and stuff like that. And the first one actually starts off in a comic book, which takes place before The Phantom Menace. And it's called Darth Maul, and it's a 5-issue miniseries is what they call it. It's not an ongoing series. It's just like a short stint of a story. And so we can talk about that one first. So Cad Bane was a Duros male bounty hunter. Duros being, blue-skinned, big red eyes, mercenary.
What are the aliens that we see in the original Cantina scene?
Right, yeah. Those were, I guess episode 4 was the first movie to actually feature Duros, in a live action.
Those two like space pilots just kind of chilling there in the cantina.
Right, yeah. So he was a male bounty hunter, mercenary in the galaxy whose career spanned from the fall of the Galactic Republic through the reign of the Galactic Empire and into the era of the New Republic. After the unceremonious demise of Jango Fett at the First Battle of Geonosis in 22 BBY, Bane was considered the best and one of the most experienced bounty hunters of that era. Although his infamy grew during the Clone Wars in particular, Bane had a high standing both within the underworld and amongst other bounty hunters. He was known for his large brimmed hats, wielded a pair of LL-30 blaster pistols, wore electro gauntlets with stunners and flamethrowers. He also had breathing tubes which enabled him to survive being force choked, and rocket boots that enabled him to fly. Pretty cool guy. What did you think when you saw him for the first time in Clone Wars?
For the first time? Gosh, that was so long ago. I think I was surprised that the bounty hunter was just so cowboy. I mean, now I love it about him, but I think the first time I saw him, I was surprised that it was just a straight out of an Old West film, just character just pulled right out.
Yeah. And
that friggin' hat.
that friggin' hat, Yeah, his first appearance was in season 1 of the Clone Wars at the very, very end episode when they kidnap Zero the Hutt, they liberate him from the Republic prison. But we'll get into that in just a bit. So this comic book, Darth Maul, takes place before the Phantom Menace, and he shows up specifically in issue number 2, I believe it is, all the way through number 5. And we can just kind of summarize sort of like what happened here. So basically in the story, Darth Maul is kind of bloodthirsty, right? And I forget, did we do a what happened on Darth Maul? I think we did, didn't we? I don't know. Can't remember.
That's a good question.
Can't even remember which ones we've done now and which ones we haven't.
We either did or we just overlapped a lot with the Darksaber and maybe Ahsoka.
Right, yeah.
It might have been the Darksaber. Anyway.
Yeah. So Darth Maul and the Darksaber. What happened? Yeah. So we did that one March 8th, 2021. So that was quite a while ago now.
That was a year ago.
Yeah. So we brought it up in that that episode as well. But Darth Maul is pretty bloodthirsty right now, and he's kind of going on a he's trying to kill as many Jedi as he can without Sidious finding out. He's just getting bored, you know. He's like,
I have read this.
When are we revealing ourselves to the Jedi? You know, he's like he's thirsty for it. And Bane was recently because Jango is still alive at this point, and Bane has been mentored by fellow bounty hunter Jango Fett during this time period, or just before this, and around this point when Darth Maul he's contracted by Maul, and they meet on Nar Shaddaa, and some business is going down there. And Aura Singh is there along with like a few other bounty hunters, and they assist Maul in acquiring a Jedi Padawan who he's after from an auction. And during the auction, Bane and a bunch of bounty hunters they kill the crew aboard this freight gunship that they're on, and along with Maul and Aura Singh and the others, they end up piloting a stolen ship to subdue some thugs.
That's right, yeah. So there's like tasks for this auction, and then he has to like complete it to like win the Jedi girl. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. There was an interesting moment where Bane and Aura Singh actually try to. They're like, oh, maybe we should kill him. Maybe we should kill him all because you know he's a dangerous guy. But yeah, it's kind of
did the galaxy a big favor there.
Yeah, they would have done Qui-Gon a bit of a favor there. So they so their ship that they're on is sabotaged. They crash land into this moon, and they end up surviving, obviously, and they realize that the leader of this auction, who basically sold this Jedi Padawan or whatever, actually has set it up so that they're the bait, almost like they're making further money out of making sport of the people that thought they got away with just buying this Jedi auction. Sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. So they bought this Jedi, right, for a bunch of money. And then it turns out the ship that they're on is sabotaged on purpose so that the people who buy the Jedi are crash landed onto the planet so that they and the Jedi end up getting away. And then everyone who wasn't able to buy the Jedi at the auction end up going on a big hunt, and they have to pay money to get into this hunt. And it becomes a big sport thing, like hunting down the people that, you know, bought the Jedi, but then it's more for just everyone can, you know, go after the Jedi kind of thing. And so
milking as much money as they can.
So they're basically they're double dipping. Yeah, they're double dipping for sure. And you know, Cad Bane gets sucked into this thing, and he's one of those bounty hunters on the surface of the moon that crashes down there. And it's a comic worth reading because you get to see Bane, you know, shoot up a bunch of people, and you see him in a survival state. And I don't want to really say there's an incredible amount of crucial stuff, other than the fact that Maul at this point has a relationship of some kind, a working relationship with Aura Singh, and that's kind of the main takeaway from that whole thing. Because
is this supposed to be the first time they work together?
I don't really know. I know Aura also had worked with Jango, so like, you know, the bounty hunting community, at least the elites, it's quite a small circle, I think, as far as like the most reputable. So at this point in time, I think he's been doing what he's been doing for a while. And you know, at the end of this comic, Bane obviously he gets away, and you know, it's just kind of, it ends in a way that's like, okay, everyone just goes their separate ways after this event kind of goes down. But Bane has helped out the Sith at one point in time in this comic book, right? The Sith being Darth Maul. And he also, it's clear that he's got this working relationship with other bounty hunters, people like Aura Singh, people that we see him associated with during the Clone Wars. So that's why this comic is kind of important, although it's not like super essential. It's just kind of worth noting this is technically the first chronological appearance that he makes. And then we hit the Clone Wars. And this is kind of like the big...
the bulk. This is the meat and potatoes.
The meat and potatoes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So his first appearance is in the Holocron heist arc. So if we're going chronologically through Clone Wars, technically his first episode appearance was when Zero gets liberated from the Republic prison, but that's actually the next story arc down the chain. So the first story arc that he shows up in, if you're watching the Clone Wars chronologically, it starts with Holocron heist, then Cargo of Doom, and then Children of the Force. And in this 3-part Clone Wars arc, Holocron heist, Cargo of Doom, Children of the Force, Palpatine has this evil plan to capture both a holocron from the Jedi, the Jedi vaults or something like that. And then there's also a crystal out there being held by some Jedi called the Kyber crystal. It's a Kyber crystal, but it's like the Kyber crystal. It's got all these names like inscribed on it of future.
The giant one?
Yeah. No, it's like a little one, but it's like a special Kyber crystal that they've inscribed names of future Jedi candidates. So he wants that and the holocron to be able to read the list, and then he can use that list to go down the list of names, kidnap those kids, and turn them into agents, right? Like dark agents working for him kind of thing. And this is all foreshadowing the whole Inquisitorius plan that he eventually comes out with later. But in the Clone Wars, he's got this evil plan to kind of steal children and turn them into these agents of his own, right? These Sith acolytes, if you will.
That comes up a few times.
Yeah.
I think later on in the later seasons, he is there's like an infant that is a Rhodian that gets kidnapped, and then I think Obi-Wan has to rescue it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the children. Anakin and Anakin and Ahsoka are kind of in charge of rescuing those children, and they're at a laboratory on Mustafar in that episode, which is kind of cool. Yeah, but what's interesting is because of the pre-existing relationship between Maul and Cad Bane, which I assume went well, Palpatine puts on his hood, holograms in to chat with Cad Bane, and basically gives him a job. And he gives him the job of breaking into the Jedi Temple. And immediately, Cad Bane's like hesitant. He's like, dude, like that's the Jedi Temple. Like there's no way I'm breaking in there unless, I want quadruple my fee. And Palpatine's like, money is of no concern about the and gives him the whole kind of evil rich Sith Lord. Yeah. Yeah, he's like, well, then I'll get 10 times my fee.
That's right. See how far you can push it.
Yeah. Once again, money is no object to me. Like, well, I'll
20 times.
You know what? I'm gonna call someone else. No, but he hires Cad Bane to do it, and he's got that little droid Toto that helps him do it, and it's such a cool arc, man. Seeing Cad Bane.
Why is it named after the dog from The Wizard of Oz?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't at all. But it's really quite funny because seeing anyone break into the Jedi Temple for the first time since basically the Old Republic. I think they mentioned in Star Wars Rebels that during the siege of the Old Republic, Mandalorians broke into the Jedi Temple to steal the Darksaber back, right?
Yeah.
And that was like the only other time I think that people have ever broken in to the Jedi Temple. Like it's just not done, right? And so he's obviously got this reputation that Palpatine kind of goes to him for help because he knows that Bane can accomplish this task. And traditionally, I think Jango might have been the one to do a job like this. But at this point in the Clone Wars, it's after Attack of the Clones, Jango's now gone, which leaves Cad Bane at kind of the top of the list of best bounty hunters in the galaxy at this point. So we start off introduced to this character as if he's just the head kind of honcho guy you want to hire if you want a job done well, I'm
curious what your thoughts were coming into the series with that as the explanation for this character that you've never seen before? Did
Yeah.
you buy it right away?
I mean, like, again, like if we're not going chronological, if we're talking about it from a release episode point of view, still to have to break into the Senate, hold a bunch of senators hostage, then go and liberate Zero from the Republic prison and stuff. It's a bold move, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, man, this is a cool character. This is a cool guy. He's kind of an evil bounty hunter, kind of like Aura Singh. Like, she brutally just murders people, and there's some Senate guards that she just executes point blank at some points in the show, and it's like, man, that's sweet. Like I love that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, because we do have better bounty hunters. Obviously, Din Djarin is a bounty hunter and he's a protagonist. But then you have complete other ends of the chain where it's like you got bounty hunters like Cad Bane, which are like way on the other side of the spectrum, and they're just bad. You don't want to mess with them, right? So it's no longer just about
just a job and money. That's all there is. There's no moral code at all.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no moral code, and people like Boba, people like Din Djarin, like, they've got a code. Cad Bane does not. He'll stoop as low as kidnapping children. So, what did you think of the story arc, though? Like, did you like this story arc with Palpatine's evil plan? Cad Bane being hired for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a pretty interesting idea. Just the idea of a bounty hunter having to break into the Jedi Temple, I think, is a cool concept. As far as the MacGuffin, I feel like the holocron with information about younglings, I feel like that could be exchanged for pretty much anything.
Right.
Like, it was more the concept of breaking in I thought was cool.
Yeah, for sure. We'll just take a quick listen, actually, to the clip where Cad Bane meets Palps Sheev for the first time. And it's actually quite interesting, like the dialogue that kind of transpires. So let's give this a go.
Only members, do you think you're...
Here we go.
Definitely.
Like, right away, just ominous music.
Excuse the interruption. As I was saying, Bounty Hunter, I have need of your services.
I'm listening.
I need a Jedi holocron.
To get a holocron, I'd have to break into the Jedi Temple. It's impossible. Not to mention deadly.
Perhaps your reputation has been exaggerated.
I want a rogue-class starfighter with elite weapons, cloaking device, the works. Oh, and triple my usual rate.
Your price is of no concern. I will also provide you with the means to get inside the temple.
You've got a deal.
Yeah, all right. So, that's the first time technically we see him in the show, if you're going chronologically, that is. So, good arc. Really, really good story arc. It's also the same arc, I believe, that he has a showdown with Ahsoka and Anakin, and he bests Ahsoka in a fight, holds her hostage until he gets Anakin to unlock the holocron for him, in which he's already killed the Jedi that has the Kyber crystal at this point, and pops it into the thing. So he's got it all ready to go, kind of thing. But he survives that encounter, gets away, fakes his own death, puts on some sort of clone armor, in the whole process of this ship blowing apart, sneaks on board a Republic shuttle that's getting the heck out of there, and then steals one of their own ships and gets away. And it's like, dude, this guy's like insane. Like, breaks into the Jedi Temple,
clever.
steals like Republic ships. He's like, okay, clearly this is one of the best guys that does the job right now. When you watch that first 3 episodes with him, it's insane. And
nuts, because that's a very Han Solo move.
Yeah.
Sneak in and take their own stuff to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. And by the end of the story arc, Palpatine's plan, obviously, it falls apart with Ahsoka and Anakin finding all the children, getting the all that stuff back, and the whole laboratory kind of sinks into the lava. But Cad Bane gets away. Obviously, he's not in the best position to be dealing with the Jedi at this point. If they ever came to him for anything, like, he'd probably be under arrest. But it's just like a really good way to kick off the character in this format of portraying him on screen. So the next arc we see him in is also a 3-episode arc. It's this called Evil Plans, Hostage Crisis, and Hunt for Zero. So these episodes are kind of scattered across the seasons, but they make up one story arc. And this is the story arc that follows the events of the Clone Wars theatrical release film, which saw the capture of Zero the Hutt once Jabba realizes that Zero is actually behind the plan that he kidnapped his son Rada. And he's been held in a Republic prison for quite a while now. And there's a big elaborate plan that the Hutts have to break Zero out of prison because he has something that they want. And it happens to be a journal which their father or something left behind that contains secrets of the family that dates back many, many hundreds of years or whatever, which can incriminate their family, the family of the Hutts, that is the crime family, for many, many, many things that they just don't want getting out. So they're like, okay, we got to get a hold of this guy. He's being held in Republic prison by the Jedi. This is bad news, and we got a working relationship with them right now. We can't afford to have this journal get into the wrong hands. So they hire Cad Bane to break him out of the Republic prison. And of course, Cad Bane, being as what he is, doesn't have any kind of code of ethics at all, because he almost kills all those senators, including Padme, if it wasn't for Anakin to get them out of out of that scenario, last second kind of thing. But that was such a cool episode. I remember, season 1's always a bit rough when it comes to these animated shows, and that episode was a highlight for me, for the whole, the whole arc.
It was pretty cool. Even just the fact that introduced Cad Bane, it's funny how, like, it was one of the better episodes, but it's also one that suffers from being released out of order.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like that's something we should probably explain in case people don't actually know what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know what we're going on about with chronological and release order, Clone Wars had a bit of an issue as it was coming out. There was a lot of episodes that came out, told a story, and then later in the seasons they would decide, oh, hey, let's make that story into an actual story arc and make 2 other episodes that go along with it. And so then all of a sudden these first and second season episodes started becoming parts of story arcs from season 3 onwards. And later, when the show was wrapped up, they released a list on StarWars.com, and you can actually look it up if you type up Star Wars Clone Wars chronological order. And from beginning to end, they've reordered all the Clone Wars episodes in a way top down, and you can watch them all in that order, and the story will make a lot more sense. Because if you watch it in release order, you just hit play on Disney Plus. It starts with season 1, goes down the chain, and characters that die, they come back, they die. It's like okay, who's dead, who's not dead. Because like this story happens then, and that one happens now, and this and that. And it's
true
just
Disney fashion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just ridiculous. So anytime anyone watches Clone Wars, I'm like, you got to watch it chronologically, otherwise it's just not going to make any sense. Like, there's a lot of story arcs that are messed up and split all over the place. So, yeah, Evil
It
Plans.
is a lot better. I highly suggest it as well.
Yeah. Did you watch it in that order, or I forget?
It took me 3 tries to watch through Clone Wars, because the first 2 tries I tried from the beginning, watching just season 1. I always got really bored.
Gotcha.
And never finished it. And then after talking to you, I know you suggested that and kept hounding me to watch it, and I finally did, and I watched it chronological, and it was significantly better.
Right.
But I do think it picks up a lot in season 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Barring a handful of episodes, including, ironically, my favorite arc, which I think is season 2, which is the General Kroll.
Yeah, the General Krell
Trilogy.
Umbaran arc. Yeah,
Kroll, yeah.
that's a good
That's
one.
the best one. So good, man.
Yeah. So the first episode in this story arc is called Evil Plans. Basically, Cad Bane and his associates are trying to get the plans to the Senate building because they need the Senate building plans to then later enact on their actual plan to break Zero out of the prison. So Cad Bane takes the job, and then it somehow incorporates 3PO and R2 into this whole thing. They get sent out on an errand to get some groceries for Padme because she's having a dinner party. And Cad Bane and his droid friends and stuff, they kidnap those droids while they're out taking a walk in the market, and they get cracked open for the plans of the Senate chamber and all that stuff. So let me just play a quick audio clip here.
I don't want this gibberish. I want the plans for the Senate building.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're Senator Amidala's personal droid.
I am a protocol droid. Human-cyborg relations. I can translate and instruct on appropriate etiquette. Which in your case, sir, if you don't mind me saying, is sorely lacking. That is exactly the sort of behavior I am talking about.
According to the analyzer, he is not lying. His head's totally empty of any information useful to us.
Empty, I protest. I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. I have extensive programming in the correct methods of...
Ain't that great? A brainless droid. Worthless.
My lack of knowledge is not an impediment at all. Floor plans, blueprints are not in my programming. That was always R2's speciality.
R2? The astromech. Go fetch me his little pal.
Thanks, 3PO. You just gave up R2.
Oh, gosh.
Classic. So that feeds into the next episode, which is Holocron Heist, and that was a really wicked episode. And then, of course, the follow-up to that is Hunt for Zero, and Obi-Wan and
Quinlan Voss.
Yes, thank you. Quinlan Voss. Obi-Wan and Quinlan Voss, they have an interesting relationship, shall we say. And, they go on a hunt for Zero, and that actually crosses paths with Cad Bane at some point as well, which is quite exciting. And they've got a bit of a showdown, and Cad Bane stands his ground really well against two Jedi.
Yeah. I think this is the first time we see Cad Bane using all of his tools to fight Jedi. He's flying around. He's got flamethrowers going and everything.
Oh yeah. Flamethrowers, jet rockets. Just the whole 9 yards. And the dialogue that transpires between them in that moment is pretty good as well.
And I know those rocket boots, infamous for this fight. I know it's something that has come up multiple times in our Star Wars D&D games.
Yeah,
to our game masters. It's something that probably not too happy to hear about.
Right. Let's take
one more problem they have to deal with.
Oh man. So he's always had a bit of a rocky relationship with the Jedi, and it was pretty cool to see him finally, see how he holds up in that scenario, and he holds it off pretty well, and he was able to just get away and rockets off to the next story arc, which is it's a 4-part story arc. This is one of my favorites. I think it's from season 4, and it's the whole story arc in which there's a plan to kidnap Chancellor Palpatine. And just before we actually talk about this, I got to say, when I was watching the show back in the day when these episodes were airing on TV, I thought to myself, oh, dang, is this the end of the show? Like, is this the end of Clone Wars? Like, this is the story
like Revenge
arc.
of the Sith.
Yeah, like this is the story arc that ends up that, they kidnap the Chancellor and we just fire right off into episode 3, right? And I thought that's where it was headed, and I was totally wrong. Like this story arc did not play out that way.
Thankfully, we missed a lot of good episodes.
Yeah, because the follow-up seasons were even better. Like season 5 and 6 just knocked it out of the park. But this was a pretty cool story arc. First episode in this story arc is called Deception, followed by Friends and Enemies, followed by The Box, and then finally followed by the 4th one in the arc, which is called Crisis on Naboo. So, what do you remember about the story arc?
This was with Rako Hardin, right?
Yeah, this is the story arc where they. So basically, at a certain point during the war, Bane is finally apprehended by the Republic for his crimes, imprisoned in Republic detention center. And
my first question was going to be, how did he get arrested?
Right. Yeah, I don't exactly know how that worked.
Probably
out.
a good story there, right?
Right. Yeah. It happens between the story arcs. I guess it happens, and same with.
Or he intentionally turned himself in because we know that he's part of this group.
Right. Yeah. Maybe.
And he's the one who stages the prison break.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So he's hired by a guy named Moralo Ival, who's a criminal mastermind working for Darth Sidious and Count Dooku, right? And Cad Bane, Moralo Ival, they break out of prison. They stage the entire prison break, and a ton of people get loose, including Boba Fett as the child, kid Boba Fett that tried to assassinate Mace Windu, who's then captured. He gets out. Bosk gets out. Everyone freaking gets out. And this event that happens, the Republic prison break that Cad Bane stages, is one of these events that just kind of is remembered by the galaxy. Yeah. It's just one of these big things that happened during the Clone Wars. Very similar, actually, to when Zero is broken out of prison by Cad Bane and they get away. Later in season 7. I don't know if you remember that, but the Martez sisters, they actually recall the event of Zero being broken out in that story arc, and they actually follow up what happened. They were like, the Jedi actually did come after them, and there was a big chase. He still got away, but there was a big chase, and a big ship kind of went down, crashing into this building,
right.
and then killed their parents, right? And that was an event that was like, oh, that's so interesting, because we never saw the pursuit that happened immediately after he gets away, right? And it's just one of these events that just kind of sticks with the way that world is, and this Republic.
So many people affected, yeah.
Yeah, and so you take all these deadly kind of killers and bounty hunters and stuff, and you set them loose upon a city full of billions of people. It's bad news. So
why are they on Coruscant? There's that many bad people. Like, the prison should not be on Coruscant.
It should be on some desolate moon somewhere.
That's like a prison planet somewhere.
Yeah.
Like a Guantanamo Bay planet, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
this was a really good arc. I like this arc a lot, especially because, spoilers, Obi-Wan fakes his own death and tricks Anakin so that he can disguise himself as the secret bounty hunter to undermine this plot.
Exactly. Yeah, the Jedi hire a guy called Rako Hardin to basically assume his identity, and Obi-Wan fakes his death, doesn't tell anyone. The only people that know about it is Yoda and Mace Windu, and they have to play it that way because if Anakin's reaction isn't authentic,
genuine.
Yeah, genuine. Yeah, that it wouldn't sell, right? And they know that the top of the chain on the other side of the war is gonna know, right? And that includes Count Dooku and everyone involved, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this plot that they hear whispers about, that this Moralo Ival has been tasked with this particular job of kidnapping the Chancellor. So they send Obi-Wan disguised as Rako Hardin to basically get in on this job. And he does an exceptional performance, getting in on this gig, right? He comes up with his own code name in that arc, which is Ben. And I love that story arc so much for Obi-Wan in prison, and he's on the comms with Yoda or Mace Windu, and he's like, he pulls it out from the bottom of this chair. He's like, "This is Ben," and then he keeps talking. It's like, dang, that was sweet. Like, there's no context for how he came up with that, but I just appreciated the Easter egg so much, that his code name was just, he shortened it to Ben, and he just later goes with that on Tatooine. I thought that was great.
It's pretty cool. It shows it like full circle how he came to get that name in the first place.
Yeah,
there's cool.
Sure.
There's a lot of cool tech in this arc as well.
Yeah.
It's like they get the later on in the later episode, they have the matrix that like disguises their
the
armor.
holographic disguise matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, which is super cool. So they don't have to actually put on different disguises. It's just a hologram around them.
Yeah.
And then Rako Hardin or Obi-Wan has like a voice changing thing so that he can fully assume. Plus he like...
Yeah. It's really gadgetery.
What is he... Trying to remember how he turned into Rako Hardin.
Oh, there was some injection in the neck, and it just completely, like, it's basically just polyjuice potion in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. Yeah. It was pretty sweet. But man, yeah, you're right. Like the tech in this arc was cool. What was really interesting is throughout this first episode specifically, Cad Bane and Obi-Wan / Rako Hardin do not get along. Like they don't want to. Well, Bane doesn't want to have anything to do with Rako Hardin because he's a guy who's kind of top dollar, right? And if he's got to split his fee with anyone, this better be a good, capable person, right? And Rako Hardin at this point is this nobody. Like he's Obi-Wan's plan though is to associate Rako Hardin with the bounty hunter that killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. So he's got that going for him, but Cad Bane's like, he killed him with a lousy sniper blast. He's like, anyone can do that. And so he doesn't have a whole lot of respect for Rako Hardin. But it's really interesting because as the arc goes on, he starts to gain this respect for Obi-Wan / Rako Hardin. But he also smells something fishy about him. But he does gain respect for him. And in the very third episode of the arc, the box, he actually saves his life. Like Cad Bane, Moralo Eval tries to kill Rako Hardin because Obi-Wan is the one saving them all every challenge in the box, and eventually Moralo Eval's like, hey, this guy's gonna take my job as the planner for this whole thing, right? Like I don't want that to happen, so I'm gonna kill him off. And then Cad Bane, he's like, oh no, if you gotta kill him, you gotta do it like a man. And he like saves him from falling off this edge, pulls him back up again, and lets him fight Moralo Eval, kind of thing. And then at the end of the day, Cad Bane gets the winning slot for leading the charge against kidnapping Palpatine. But it was just such a cool,
of all the people there.
Yeah,
the first choice.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah, I think Dooku he knows it too. And oh man, like this whole story arc, man, is just such a great story arc. They also have a run-in. There's at one point where Anakin finds out that Rako Hardin is Obi-Wan, and there's a whole kind of thing with him in this story as well. But there's a bit of
because he's going on like a rampage / investigation, trying to get revenge for Obi-Wan.
Yeah, exactly, and he's going after Rako Hardin because of this whole escapade, right? And not knowing that he is in fact Obi-Wan Kenobi. But there's something really funny here. I gotta play it. Hold on a second.
Look, it's Cad Bane.
Are you sure?
Ugh, who else wears a hat like that?
I love that. So there's another moment in this episode where they're on a chase scene. Anakin and Ahsoka pursuing Cad Bane, Rako Hardin, and Moralo Eval. And they knock their ship down to the ground, and they end up having to get out in a bit of a standoff kind of thing. And Cad Bane has a really interesting line that he says to Ahsoka after Anakin and Rako have a bit of a tussle here.
This is for Obi-Wan.
Cad Bane saves Rako from Anakin slicing him down.
Now it's my turn.
Some fighting going on between Anakin and Cad Bane. What's funny is like he doesn't realize Rako is Obi-Wan, of course, but he thinks that Rako Hardin wants to kill Anakin. And Cad Bane's jumping in there to try and get the kill first, which is funny.
Yeah. He's trying to get the credit for killing a Jedi, just like Rako, right?
Yeah, he's jealous of Rako. Yeah, Obi-Wan knocks Anakin out. Cad Bane's about to kill him. And Ahsoka jumps in.
Ship is still operational. I got it working. Now let's get out of here.
You're lucky we're in a hurry, little lady. We'll have to dance another time.
He's just got such cool lines, man. Like that's the most like westernized thing that he could possibly say in that moment. You know, it's so cowboy of him.
So true. Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of great one-liners. He's such a old west hero, like pulled right out of like Fistful of Dollars or something, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he's supposedly based on a character from that Clint Eastwood movie. Is it?
There's a lot. Man with No Name.
Is it The Man with No Name?
Fistful of Dollars is the most famous, I think.
Yeah, there was a character. There was a character specifically that he's based on, which I can't fully remember which one it is. Is it Angel Eyes from The Man with No Name? I'm pretty sure. I think it's Angel Eyes. Is that a character from that film? Pretty sure it is.
I'm gonna look it up. Can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Yeah, it's got it. Yeah. Angel Eyes. Yeah.
Guy with the big hat.
Yeah.
The
guy with the big hat. Yeah. So that's technically who he's based on. But yeah, such a great story arc, and obviously at the end, once again, Crisis on Naboo, Cad Bane gets away. He doesn't get away. He gets captured, I think, doesn't he? Because he says something like he realizes it was Kenobi when Windu walks over or something like that, and he says, "Well done, Master Kenobi," or whatever, and then Cad Bane is like, "Kenobi, I knew there was something fishy about you from the start."
yeah. Even though he clearly was like falling for it for most of the arc.
Yeah, he fell for it for like a good long while. Saved his life like 2 or 3 times. But what really tore me up was that even though they're adversaries, there was a bit of a respect thing going there for Cad Bane, and knowing even after finding out that it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, like I think he had a little bit of respect for Racco Hardeen, that is this guy that he just didn't like in the beginning, and they kind of grow into these professionals, but obviously at odds, but not enough to want to kill each other at that point. And
they're almost even teammates.
Yeah, they're teammates, right? Exactly. And so it was nice to see. He even gives Racco Hardeen the job of being the sniper when it comes to subduing the Chancellor, right? So yeah, it's kind of it's a good story arc, and you kind of get attached to this relationship of Cad Bane with Racco Hardeen, or with Obi-Wan, shall we say, before things go south. And it's just one of those classic Fast and Furious plot lines. The cop has to pretend to be the racer and the criminal, and infiltrate the gang. And is the same kind
You're
of...
right. They're just describing Fast and Furious, the first movie.
Yeah. The plot line of this whole arc is basically Fast and Furious. And I remember when Squid Game came out, the Netflix show, there was a big thing online, something that Star Wars fans will have known so much sooner than the headlines caught on to it. But the box episode is just straight out of... it's just the Squid Game show is just straight out of Clone Wars. It's out of the box episode, because the box is this shape-shifting environment with all these booby trap challenges. And that's basically just it's a game, right? And there's a winner, and the ones who win get to take part in this job that's going to pay billions of credits or millions of credits to take part in this heist to kidnap the Chancellor. So... it was a cool, one of the most, I think, exciting and cinematic plot lines of the whole series, I gotta say.
It was fun just watching an episode with all these different bounty hunters.
Yeah,
trying to work together and see a competition between just them.
Totally. Surprisingly enough, that's the full quantity of direct finished episodes that Cad Bane was in.
Which is always insane to me because it always feels like he's in a lot. Same with Quinlan Voss. Some reason to me, I feel like there's multiple arcs, and it feels like there's a lot of story. But when you actually look at them in order, there's not that many.
No, you're right, and there was some clips that were released with Cad Bane for some unfinished Clone Wars episodes, and I know Disney threw us a bone and gave us half a season for Dave to wrap up the final stories, but there was still a big chunk of Clone Wars that we never had, or that we never got, right? And there was an intended 8 seasons before it became shortened down to a measly 6.5, then 7-ish, because even season 6 is like half a season, so it's basically 6 seasons. But there was supposed to be a total of 8 seasons, each season being like 22 to 24 episodes in a season kind of thing. And there were some story arcs with Cad Bane and Boba Fett, which it was a big story arc. We've talked about it many times, including when we were talking about the Book of Boba Fett. We brought it up before, and there was this whole story arc where Cad Bane would have mentored Jango's son Boba, and they would have had this relationship that, part of the reason why Boba gets this westernized flair about him, wearing the spurs and all that. And I thought it was just such a cool idea to have something going there, right? So let's just play like a little bit of audio. You can look these up for yourself online. They're proxy animations, so it's basically what the team used to storyboard an episode together before they actually produced the animation for the full-fledged thing. So it's a bit rough, but you get the idea. And the audio was already recorded for the voice actors and such. It's just kind of an interesting little snippets that they released over the course of the years at various conventions and all this and that. Of course, Star Wars Celebration again around the corner. Maybe they'll release some more stuff in light of Book of Boba and all that. Who knows? But let's just take a quick listen to the first clip here. Cad Bane and Boba sitting out in the middle of a field with Toto, the droid, or a new one, that is. Having a drink.
We're about to be ambushed.
Are you sure?
Yep. We are completely surrounded. It's gonna be a pretty good scrap.
We can take him.
Oh, I'm sure we could, but instead, I want you to let yourself get captured.
What? No way.
Look. The only way we're gonna be able to find their camp is if they take you alive and drag you back to it. Take this tracking device so I can locate you.
Can I at least put up a fight?
Just don't overdo it. You don't want them to kill you. Get ready. Here they come.
The Tuskens.
Oh yeah, look at that.
I do hope that young Boba will be all right.
Don't worry, Toto. He should be fine. As long as the sand people ain't hungry.
So at some point between the two of them, things go south, and there's a bit of a standoff that happens towards the end of the story arc. And this is kind of this clip we played before, but I might as well just play it again. What I really like about the story arc is like it is just the pinnacle of, Boba getting on top of that.
Be so hasty now, boy.
That #1 bounty hunter slot, right? It becomes his after this moment.
And it adds story to
Let
the
them go, Bane.
ever questioned.
This isn't their fight anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Always fighting for those in need. That's a quick way to wind up poor or dead. And probably both.
No more innocent people are going to die. All be locked up, all live in fear.
Looks like your little insurrection has failed. Now surrender, and I'll let your friends walk away.
I say, we give the kid his shot.
So that's it. Just you and me then, Boba Fett.
I guess it is.
They both got the dual gun thing going on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweet, man. There's the Book of Boba did not do this moment justice for the second time. If it was supposed to be the second showdown,
They really could have just went shot for shot and copied it, and it would have been better.
Yeah.
I would kind of wish they had.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. The suspense builds. It just flashes back and forth. Like this entire time, they're zooming in on the guns, the hands, the eyes, all that stuff, until finally.
I think it.
Boom, and then Boba gets the big dent in his helmet, and then you hear it charring on flames and stuff, which is pretty cool. It kind of goes against the whole Beskar thing, but hey, you know, he was cool, right?
Maybe because it didn't actually puncture it, so you could just say Cad Bane's blasters are just really, really strong.
Yeah, maybe like cranked them to the max or whatever. But it's just such a cool story arc that we still don't have. Would love to get. I think the team at Lucasfilm still considers it canon. At least that's what Pablo was saying.
It seems like it, at least. Like, because I know the Book of Boba Fett really made it a gray area, but Cad Bane did have that patch on his head.
Yeah, exactly. In the Bad Batch, when he shows up, they do provide him a kind of this physical excuse for being there and not having it died in that story arc. And I think if we did get that story arc where he did in fact die, I don't think the Bad Batch would have happened in the first place, and therefore I don't think he would have shown up in there, therefore again not showing up in the Book of Boba. So I think completing the Clone Wars would change everything. It would have changed everything that Disney's done with Bad Batch and Book of Boba over the last couple of years. And it's all to do with end of Clone Wars. That's what I say, like, Clone Wars is so crucial to people enjoying Star Wars to its fullest because it has so many ties, you know, even to what like is coming out in the future with the Ahsoka show, with anything, you know, anything they're doing is like Clone Wars. It all goes back to Clone Wars somehow, some way, because Dave Filoni is one of these guys that's going to draw off of these stories that he has been affiliated with. And Clone Wars
he's wrote so many stories, so many characters, so it just makes sense that
Clone Wars is
that
his
that
foundation.
Wealth,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
The
his
wealth
foundation
of story.
For sure. Yeah, and the foundation of like some of these stories in Mandalorian and going forward in some of these shows, Book of Boba onwards, whatever, has either come from Star Wars Rebels or some Star Wars The Clone Wars, and it's like, you know, there's a lot there. So. Yeah, there's even on the Wikipedia page, there is a little segment about this unfinished story arc, and yeah, and it says the two eventually drifted apart. Obviously, something to do with the standoff. Zira Cat loves being a part of the podcast.
She's just excited about Cad Bane, one of her favorite characters.
I know. I feel it. I agree. So Age of the Empire comes around, and we have the first story arc, actually the first episode that Cad Bane shows up in is Reunion, and then following that is Bounty Lost. So Just a quick recap for Reunion. It happens to be. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna look this up. The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch reunion. So Cad Bane shows up for the first time. Season 1, episode 8. That's what it is. And do you remember much about this episode? Reunion, the first episode that Cad Bane shows up in?
I do, because I think it was one of the episodes I liked quite a lot. And so I know they go to the abandoned Kaminoan facility, which is pretty cool. And that's where Cad Bane shows up, and he's trying to capture Omega, but then Shand is there as well.
Yeah.
And then we get a really cool duel between the two. And then you and I were left questioning, are they trying to make Fennec Shand the new #1 bounty hunter?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. What was a great moment was when he comes face to face with Hunter, and they've got a bit of an interesting moment, and very similar to the moment that he has or would have had with Boba in the Clone Wars. They give a moment like that to him and Hunter, another westernized standoff. And I'm just gonna say the music when he first shows up in this scene is just fantastic.
Someone's here. This wasn't the scrapper's handiwork.
One much work.
Omega, get behind me.
I've taken down so many clones over the years. Once you figure out one, the rest are easy.
You're in for a surprise.
I doubt that.
He's a bounty hunter.
Ain't you smart? The kid's got it all figured out.
You're in trouble now.
Who hired you?
Son, that's confidential information.
Yeah, so there's a pretty cool. I just cut it off short there, but there's a pretty cool scene. And in the following episode, I think it was. Is that the one that you're talking about? Episode 9, which is called Bounty Lost. Is that the one with Fennec Shand?
That one's got Fennec Shand in it. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the follow-up episode. And
okay.
Yeah, because Cad Bane at this point, the end of episode 8. He guns down Hunter, who's thankfully still alive at the end of that encounter, badly injured though. And then Cad Bane does in fact get Omega, and he's got her kind of in cuffs at the beginning of the episode. But
right, and that's when he goes to the abandoned Kaminoan facility.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's when Fennec comes after her, and the whole parade. So. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat episode, and seeing him show up obviously in the Bad Batch was such a neat way to kind of carry that story on. I guess that even though Clone Wars didn't wrap up, it was just cool to see that character back, right?
Yeah, 100%. I know we didn't expect Cad Bane to be back at this point because we were both under the assumption that the animation reels were canon, and that's where Cad Bane was killed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there was a bit of a controversy, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? They knocked him over at one point. His hat flew off. You see this big metal kind of patch on his skull. I was like, you know what? There's people that exist in the world that have in fact been shot in the head and lived to tell the tale. Right. And
you got to be the luckiest person ever, and the fact that it happens to be the villain known as Cad Bane. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know which side of the force is helping him out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a quick listen to this episode. There's a small section here which is worth listening to. This is Cad Bane versus Fennec Shand from episode 9, Bounty Lost.
With my score,
You of all people know it's all about the price. Besides, she was my score first. Omega and I go way back. Don't we?
You lack the experience to be going up against me.
Yet, I'm the one who has the payment.
That's my case you're holding. Hand it over and I'll let you walk out of here.
How about a trade? The case for the girl.
Sounds fair? You first.
I have the case!
My credits! Toto, find the kid.
I am on it!
Yeah, so that's a nice little clip there from that episode, and you know, anyone who wants to see Cad Bane again in animated form, go check out The Bad Batch. So that was a really cool story. I'm sure Cad Bane's going to be back for season 2. What do you think? What do you think, Blake? Do you think Cad Bane's going to be back for season 2?
I do think so, because he's such a cool character. We'll definitely have to see how it's tied together. I would like to see another showdown between him and Fennec, I think.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. I'd love to see a rematch between him and Hunter. Obviously, he's got to walk away from a fight like that, but you know, it's just neat to see him doing these other jobs, and you know, I hope they find a good way to bring him back again in the following seasons. Of course, big time jump happens, and the next time we see him again is all the way after the original trilogy, a couple years later in the Book of Boba Fett, starting with Chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. And this was great. I got to say, Chapter 6, I think I mentioned it before, is probably my favorite episode out of the whole season. And it happens to be the episode, I think, that Dave Filoni directed, right? But just such a really cool way to bring him back. And I know I've stated my own complaints about kind of how they handled the visual look of the character and such. But you know, I'm still always grateful to see a character like this come back in any way, shape, or form. And since he's back anyways in the Bad Batch, I assume, hey, great. Like when I saw him come back, I was like, no way. Like I sat up in my seat when I was watching this at home on the couch. I don't know about you. Were you the same way? You saw him and...
Oh, yeah. I was... From the moment they did the wide angle and you just saw the guy with the hat, I was just like, no way. They finally did it. They finally brought Cad Bane live action, because I know that's something that we've wanted for a very, very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then the rest of the episode, I was only half paying attention to what was happening because I was trying to debate if he looked right or not.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I know. I feel the same way. It was just, you know, it was a tough one, but it's still cool to see, you know, someone like that show up and you know, and he shows up at the very end of the episode, and I got some audio again from this clip. So let's take a listen.
Let me handle this, deputy.
I'm not leaving you out here alone.
Get inside.
Picture perfect costume too. Like they certainly took measures to make sure it looked accurate.
Yeah, the costume is spot on. Even the tubes and everything.
Man. Yeah, the tubes for sure. Yeah.
And who might you be?
Whatever Fett is paying you, we'll match. And all you've got to do is stay put and let things play out.
Hey, the marshal ain't for sale.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I feel like the hat could have been a little bigger.
Agreed. Just like Ahsoka's head tails could be a little longer.
Yeah.
I'd be careful where I was sticking my nose if I were you.
Is that friendly advice or a threat?
Boba Fett is a cold-blooded killer who worked with the Empire.
You tell your spice runners Tatooine's closed for business. This planet's seen enough violence.
You should have never given up your armor.
We get yet another standoff, and he guns down Cobb Vanth, and we know that he survives as well, but kills the deputy cold blood. You know what I find really interesting about that clip is he states that Boba Fett is a cold-blooded killer, and as far as our knowledge goes, he hasn't had any run-ins with Boba since the Clone Wars, at least as far as the stories that we have to go off of, because we're only one episode away here talking about Book of Boba from his demise, but that's all the content that he shows up in, right? So it's like, man, like what happened with I mean, he's the cold-blooded killer, right? I don't know if this is just kind of a blindside, it's just like this thing he's throwing out there to make him look bad, or if it's like some grudge that he's got against Boba for maybe dealing with the Empire and superseding Cad Bane's reputation, that he gets a job like that, and possibly stacking on top of the fact that Boba did in fact shoot him in the face. And
I mean, he never did say he was a good guy, so I think he's saying like Boba as well is terrible.
Yeah, I think so, and just throwing him under the bus or whatever, something like that. So it's just one of those interesting things, and then of course Cad Bane shows up again. I think it's like twice in like the next episode. He has got a bit of a thing going on with them in the streets. Was it like
he has
some tension?
Essentially, two more duels. One gets called off at the last second because they both have back shooters, and then they actually have the duel moment. So that means, which is kind of funny, I didn't think about this before, but that means in the Book of Boba Fett, the 3 times we see him is all duels.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, let's take a quick listen to this first one.
Thought I smelled something. If you're looking for a job, you're late.
I've already got a job. I'm here to negotiate on behalf of the Pike Syndicate.
I don't negotiate with gutless murderers.
If that's not the quack to call in the stifling slimy.
Clear out. Tell your bosses we know they're outnumbered.
I wouldn't be counting on the people of Freetown to be coming anytime soon. I paid Marshal Vanth a visit. You should have never left him without his armor. Before you get any ideas, I've got back shooters too. Let the spice move through Mos Espa, and all this can be avoided.
No.
What do you propose, then?
I will only negotiate with the head of the Pike Syndicate.
You mean the one that massacred your Tuscan family and blamed it on a speed bike gang? You know it's true.
Boba.
Let's do this. Right here. Right now.
Not now. You pick when.
You kill Vance. The reinforcements aren't coming.
We fight on our terms, not theirs.
I can take him.
You're emotional.
I can take him.
We need to adjust. You'll have your moment.
Tell your client, negotiations are terminated.
You're going soft in your old age.
We all do.
What's your takeaway from their conversation, and when he kind of alludes to, just like the first time that he says anything to Boba, and he's like, what did you say? You're looking for a job or something like that, and he's like, I already got a job, and it's like, it's almost like no time has passed or whatever, but it's also very tense. So it's kind of a general. It's like they kind of presented that moment as, we can always make something that goes right before this if we have to, and it doesn't really break anything. But at the same time, it's just it's still just enough that it gets us from that last confrontation, knowing it's been years. They're within the same circles. They've probably heard what each other have been doing over the last few years, right? So there is
many
something
years.
There. Yeah, over the last many years. Yeah. 20, 30 almost.
Yeah, exactly. This is a long time.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's a good question. I guess I would think, because I believe you're referring to the time gap between their last duel and the animations.
Yeah.
I would think with that response of Boba saying, like, are you looking for a job? You're late. To me, that seems like tensions have cooled a bit from when they last had their standoff. So I feel like, it's been 30 years, so maybe that's been enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have crossed paths since then.
Right. Yeah, and let's just take a quick listen to the final kind of confrontation. I'm not going to listen to all of it because that's I think it's diced up a few times over the course of the battle. But there's something interesting that he says kind of right here before they fight again after this whole Rancor situation goes down. Cad Bane scares away the Rancor. Boba gets up and they have another standoff in the street.
Take your hoodlum gang with you.
I've known you a long time, Boba. One thing I can't figure. What's your angle?
This is my city. These are my people. I will not abandon them.
Like the Tuscans.
Don't toy with me. I'm not a little boy any longer. And you are an old man.
I'm still faster than you.
That may be. But I have armor.
Let's find out. Now's about the time you jet off to your Bacta tank.
This is my city!
It's really interesting that they acknowledge
You tried to go straight.
that he's known him for so long.
Your father's blood.
Well, as we were just talking about, like,
Yeah.
Boba's known him since he was a child.
Yeah,
Boba
and-
here is what, 50?
Exactly. Yeah, Cad Bane actually in that just brief moment there, he says, you're a killer. You've got your father's blood running through your veins. So he acknowledges the fact that Django and Boba are directly related. He knows that relationship is there. He's acknowledging the fact that Cad Bane once mentored Boba. He's acknowledging the fact that he was once mentored himself by Django. And there's a lot of personal stuff going on, right, as they're shooting at each other in this street fight, which is pretty cool.
It's one of those things that's really cool that it works knowing that, but it also works if you're just watching the episode and you had no idea that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth mentioning as well. They like going from animation to live action is always a rough transition, but the way he flips around in the street as they're dueling it out, they nailed Cad Bane's like athletic ability. Even as an old man, he seems to be able to do these crazy flips and stuff like that. He somersaults and everything like that.
He's very agile. I mean, he's able to hold his own against Jedi, so he's not going to be like a Bowser type character.
Right. Very lean and agile.
Exactly. He's going to be able to dodge and not get cut in half.
Yeah. And when Boba says, like, I'm not a little boy any longer, don't toy with me. Like, he's speaking to him as if he's his ex-mentor, and now they're both old men and both kind of in a different place in life, right? Like, Cad Bane's just kind of stayed consistent with what he was before when they had their first showdown, which was basically being associated with harming innocent people, right? And in that same moment in Clone Wars, in the unproduced episode, Boba was kind of on this side of a code that he had. Even though he was a killer and a bounty hunter and stuff like that, he's not a cold-blooded killer like Cad Bane is. It's not the same kind of cold-blooded killing, right? And so, he was trying to save some innocent people and stuff, and was basically just risking his life for that. And here he is again doing the same thing all these years later, but as a crime lord and as a leader and as somebody who wants to see this city thrive. And Cad Bane doesn't understand what he's doing. He's like, what's your angle? He's like, I don't get it. He's known this guy a long time, and he just can't figure out why Boba would want this, because Cad Bane is just so stuck in his roots, right?
It just makes no sense to him. If there's no personal gain out of it, then it's not something Cad Bane would do.
No, yeah, and it's moments like that where he's just acknowledging to us as the audience that this guy he's just evil. He's just an antagonist in every way, shape, and form. That he's got no morality.
He's not Darth Sidious, but he's not a good person either.
No, yeah, he doesn't care about innocent people. Yeah,
he's just very selfish. At the end of the day.
Very, yeah. He says something interesting here too.
Consider this my final lesson.
It's about to execute.
Look out for yourself. Anything else is weakness. I knew you were a killer.
There's his last breath. All righty. So that's the end of Cad Bane.
Do you think he's dead? Do you think he's gonna come back with a robot stomach?
I think that was intended to be the end. It's just obviously, I think if anyone listening in on this episode right now has heard our whole Boba Fett coverage, you guys know how we feel about that last episode. But it's just seeing the end of that character. I think if they ever do bring it back, obviously it's for an earlier point in the timeline. And we'll get him again, I'm sure, for Bad Batch and stuff. But yeah, it's
Or
certainly
maybe this Obi-Wan series coming up. How cool would it be if Cad Bane is hunting Obi-Wan down?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, maybe he could show up in that, or even in Andor. Maybe he'll show up in Andor for some reason. There's
because
a
he's
variety
alive
of
in that
shows.
era now.
Yeah, there's a variety of shows that he could show up in, right? So yeah, I mean, like you said, like when we look at a character like this, it's kind of one of those things, kind of like Maul, But Maul's more interesting because he's got this actual story arc of having to change and evolve as time goes by, as he tries to survive, he tries to reinvent himself, tries to become a crime lord, this and that. Cad Bane is just one of these characters that we've now taken a look at that's just consistent, beginning to
He's
end.
very
There's
consistent.
nothing different about him. And any time you see him, there's nothing different, right? And
He's just skilled, selfish prick at the start, and he's a skilled, selfish prick at the end.
Yeah. Well said. The audience would applaud you for that. So
His memoirs.
Yeah.
Cad Bane's memoirs. Cad Bane, skilled, selfish prick.
Yeah.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just he's one of those characters, and as cool as he is, I feel like someone like Boba Fett, people loved him because he was the bad guy, but he was like this cool guy with gadgets and everything like that. And even though Cad Bane is somewhat different, in a way, he's liked for the same attributes. He's got the cool stuff. He's got the bad attitude. He's the villain of the story. In almost every case, he's always the antagonist. And it's just there's not a lot of there's not a lot of characters out there that we can say the same of. Even Maul has had his moments where he's not necessarily been a good guy, but we've seen him pair up and fight Inquisitors with Jedi. He's been a crime lord. He's been a variety of
kind
things.
of
He tried
became
to
a master to Ezra.
Yeah, he was Ezra's like a mentor for like a brief 5 minutes. He tried to make amends with Ahsoka so that they could pair up and take down Sidious. Until she didn't believe him and about all this other stuff with Anakin. And it's like a guy like that, he's bad. He's evil. He's a Sith Lord. He's a lot of things. And at the end of the day, he dies. Obi-Wan holds his body in the desert as an old friend, almost, lets him die in his arms kind of thing. He gives him the decency of telling him what he thinks Luke is. And there's a lot of things there that make a character like that interesting and gives him multiple shapes. Cad Bane is just like a box. You look at it, it's the same from every angle, man. Every angle, he's just the same guy. And it's like, there's something refreshing.
That's why we like him.
Yeah, there's something refreshing about at least one character out there is like that. And Palpatine's no different. He's a very simple, straightforward villain with a goal, with many, many goals, many, many plans. And they're all for personal gain. And Cad Bane is always about the money, always about the bounty, always about getting the job done. And
what's funny is that was the original description of Boba Fett during the original trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny
He was
how
the best.
characters
He just
evolve.
wanted money. He did whatever it took to get it done, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how characters like that evolve. Aspects that have been invented with a character like Boba have now been amplified in each individual way through another character. So Din Djarin was
passed down.
Yeah. So the bad guy aspect with the gadgets has been given to Cad Bane. The masked, kind of quiet, mysterious man who's a bounty hunter kind of got passed off to Din Djarin. And there's a lot of other things that they've kind of shared with other characters. And Boba
stripped.
Yeah, and Boba really is kind of tribute to I guess inspiring a lot of these characters, right? Because Boba came first. So what would Boba be if it wasn't for or what would Cad Bane if it wasn't for Boba existing in that universe already with that Western flair and the bad
cool gadgets.
Yeah, the cool gadgets and all that stuff. So I love that we can look at these characters from a perspective looking back at all the stuff that they've kind of been, all the stories that they've been in over the years, and really kind of dive into the complexity of some of these guys. But Cad Bane, being a character that we saw the end of more recently, just interesting looking back at his character arcs and realizing this guy really doesn't change, you know? So, that being said, is there anything you wanted to bring up before we wrap up? And I actually got one last thing I wanted to throw out there before we close up here, but anything you want to bring up?
Well, I think that they spend all this money on the costume that we're going to see Cad Bane again at some point.
Yeah, in live action?
I think so. That's my opinion on it. I feel like they like to reuse a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility.
Maybe he'll be cloned.
Yeah, maybe he will be. So before we wrap up, I wanted to throw it out there. NetEase reportedly is acquiring Star Wars Eclipse developer Quantic Dream. I know there's been a lot of stuff in the news about Quantic Dream and kind of the controversial, toxic work environment there, and the inevitable delays of the High Republic game Eclipse because of all these things. And it's worth mentioning that studio is now being bought out and being acquired by a company which is based in China. It's possible that a lot of this work could be outsourced. It's possible that things over that studio could be completely changed around. I know the hierarchy of leadership might change up a little bit with the current guy in charge maybe leaving or whatever. Who knows? Basically just mentioning it because I know we were talking about it recently with the release date of this game potentially being like way down the road in 2028 or something like that. But maybe with this buyout, we could see that game a lot sooner. So that's some good news.
You think it'd be sooner, as in they'll get the work done faster?
Yeah, as in they're gonna kind of fast track a game like that to earn back their purchase, and who knows?
Because it was a long ways out originally, wasn't it? Like 5 or 6 years from now.
Yeah, it was supposed to be what was it? Well, it was supposed to be 2027, 2028 when this game is released because of all the issues, I think. But the teaser trailer being out already, I think all of us just assumed, oh, it's coming out like in a year or two, right?
Yeah.
And that's apparently not the case. Yeah, apparently that's not the case. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see maybe if that game will be fast-tracked in any way whatsoever. But who knows?
I hope so. We need more Star Wars games. I'm finally playing through Jedi Fallen Order now, and I'm enjoying it quite a lot. And I want more games in that same light.
Yeah, for sure.
Disney has had the license for Star Wars for so long, and we've got such a tiny amount of games in that amount of time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think EA really killed a lot of the momentum with good Star Wars games. And, it's great to see some of these games coming back. Some of these genres coming back, like single-player storyline games.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see.
That's really the heart of Star Wars games, because Star Wars it's a story universe, right? That's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, story-driven games is what we want as Star Wars fans. So it's good to see that coming back. Any last words before we wrap up here? Cad Bane wise or anything else?
No, just it's good chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Sounds good, man. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Keep flying.
All right, and thank you guys for tuning in at home, in the car, in the kitchen, wherever you are. It's great to see people tuning into the show at all times. Every day of the week, we got people across the world listening into this podcast, and it's great to see that, because even though it's ad-free, we don't make a dime off this thing. It's just encouraging to see that people love listening to us banter at Star Wars Escape Pod all about Star Wars, and keeps the hobby fun, and knowing that people out there are actually tuning in, which is kind of what it's for. So best way to help us out is by leaving a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on, if it supports reviews, that is. Leave a couple words behind. We'd appreciate 5 or 10 words. giving people the recommendation to tune into Star Wars Escape Pod. Share the show with a friend and follow us on social media. Links are all in the description below. We'll see you guys in the next episode, and may the Force be with you.